Welcome to MSP Unplugged. I'm your host, Paco LeBron. This is the place to learn how to run your MSP, whether you're a nimble MSP or leading a team for the journey. This is the place for you. Let me go ahead and introduce my co-host. We have none other than Rick Smith over at Renactus Technology. Rick, how are you, my friend?
Doing good. Warming up in New Jersey. We hit the 50s for like 2 days in a row. So I feel great.
Same here, my friend. Same here as well. And we also have Corey Kirkendall over at 5K Technical Services. Corey, how are you today?
Doing well, man. We hit you. We got you, man. We got you. It was up in the 70s, Rick. So you make sure you hold on to that weather for us next week, man. It go down. It's your fault, bro.
Well, the good news is that by the time you all are hearing this recording, all three of us will be in sunny Orlando, Florida. We'll be enjoying the rays and doing a little rubbing the elbows, shaking, pressing the flesh, and seeing our common MSP folk that are going around there. And then we also got, by the time of you listening to this as well, this coming Friday is our favorite thing, and that is TechCon Unplugged. We are officially on the road for TechCon Unplugged and is now dubbed the TechCon Unplugged Tour. Again, as I mentioned, this time this year, it's a little different. Instead of you coming to see us, we're here to come to see you. 3 cities on 3 different dates, and our first stop is in Newark, New Jersey, closer to Elizabeth, coming here on this Friday. Join us as we do our first live podcast with a live audience, along with MSP roundtables to discuss what's on your mind to help grow your business. Specifically for this time around, what's keeping you up at night? We're going to be talking about things like AI, operational efficiency, and we may have some guests along the way. But most importantly, providing you the value, because where I like to say is where the magic happens.
There you
We will
go.
then have a nice evening social to continue that conversation. Again, less talking at you, more talking with you. And as we said in the past, every voice matters. Go ahead, head over to techconunplug.com, enter your favorite host's first name, and you will go ahead and gain entrance to this week's TechCon in our Newark, Elizabeth, Jersey stop coming up here March 7th. So techconunplug.com, and we hope to see you in Jersey. All right, everybody, let's go ahead and have a good old-fashioned week. There's another podcast, another week going on. What's going on with you all? I'll start with you, Rick. You got a tip, trick, or story for us?
I got a tip for this week. Well, no, I have a story for this week that turns into a tip. But either way, I have a client who is an accountant and it's tax season. And I know that I fine-tuned everything to check before tax season started. I checked when they could start officially dropping when they started doing taxes. I forgot the date, but it was like 3 weeks ago now that they could that the IRS basically opened for business and they could start filing taxes. So I had checked all my accounting clients, all the clients I know that had to do taxes, things like that. I checked them all out, make sure everything was fine. And of course, we're in 2 weeks in, this client has a breakdown and it was just a mess. So I spent some time, I had to drive out to their location, fix the network, make sure, things are right, and, get them up and running. What basically happened is, make a short story long here. He lost a day of work, basically, right? And this was one of those things where it was unforeseen. We checked the server, we tuned everything up. Everything was good. We never had an outage, never had a down. And then when of course, the day he needed to work the most, everything goes down. So my tip for everyone here is basically, that's my story. We got it all working out, got it all worked out, and he's up and fine. I'm appreciative that we had a good relationship, and he was upset, but he was also understandable. And you're gonna find clients like that sometimes, and you're gonna find clients that are unreasonable. So I was appreciative that he was reasonable with it and worked with me on it, and it didn't ruin our relationship. But my tip again is, whenever you think you have things in hand, just double check, triple check, quadruple check if you must. And don't also, I guess the last part of this is this: you can check more than one time, right? So we checked this out about a week or so before we knew he had to do taxes was up. He told me when we started talking about the problem the day I was there, he said things had been slowing down that week. This happened on a Thursday. So he said, I noticed on Monday and Tuesday that, it was slower and slower. Things were getting slower and slower as I was trying to do the taxes, as I was doing my work. So I said to him, whenever that happens, first and foremost, you should let us know so we can figure that out. And two, we should have followed up as well, just to say, hey, how are things going? So I guess that's my tip. Follow up with your clients, even though you think everything's right, or you've done all you can, just follow up. Ask them how are things going, drop a quick note, a quick email, a quick phone call, whatever it takes, just to know. Because maybe if we would have known, we figured out what the problem was and, fixed it. But if we would have known this on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, if we'd have checked in or he would have told us, we wouldn't have lost a day on Thursday.
Yeah, regular conversations are always key with your clients. Corey, what you got for us this week?
Yeah, man, I'm just gonna piggyback off of Rick, man. I love it, man. We do a lot of accountants and CPAs as well, man. And so what we do with them, man, to give them their warm and fuzzies, man, anytime between January and May, that's their season. No touch, no that ever, and we give them priority in the queue. And the same thing from October to like mid-November, same thing, because that's when they start the back end of what they've got going on. To know what they have going on, or whether they're checking their Drake server, make sure their updates, QuickBooks is where it needs to get done. All those things are happening, but we also give them that priority treatment inside of when they open up a case and things like that, because we know they're in the heat of the moment. And I think you said something that was critical, man. We know in this business, everything is great until it's not great. They love you when it's good, but when it's bad, no matter how little, how big that is, it can get really bad. But the one thing that really is your saving grace at that end of the day is what Rick says, that relationship, that you have that. Empathize. I understand where you are. We're small business, but I'm here to get you through it, because at the end of the day, we're in that relationship business, but we're also in selling uptime, right? And that's the piece where, hey, it's there, because that conversation could have went several ways. We had that situation a couple of years ago. Is they're down for a day. They cannot service. So that conversation goes well beyond just, hey, my server was down. I lost business. I lost revenue. I had to pay people for taxes that couldn't do work, clients, whatever, relationship. Man, that's not a conversation you want to entertain, but I love it, man. Is be in touch, know you got that relationship, but plan and then identify what is the right season for each of your customers, whether it's a lawyer in their trial and what they're doing, whether it's an CPA that know what their tax season is about, and let them know that you understand their business and that you're there for them and where it comes from. That's huge. That's big stuff.
Yep, can't echo enough. Don't mess with accountants during tax season. That is for sure. For us, I think for our story is when you're dealing with other MSPs, particularly if they are handling a transition, whether it is taking over a client or you are taking over a client from them, you want to offer a little grace, because you never know if you might build a new partner as it goes along. So we had, again, going through our pumpkin plan process, we transitioned 2 clients over this past month and a half. And so very different from the 2. The first one was very adversarial, very confrontational. Yeah, that way Rick said. I don't know the English good. But it was very interesting on how they were like, this is our process, this is what you need to adhere to, here's what you need to do, this is the timeline that you need to do it in. And so if everyone knows me, it's bump that. Here's how we do it. This is what was going on, and this is how you're going to get it, because we are giving you this information. This is the process that we have. So if you would have came to the table a little bit more with grace and conversational, we can go ahead and make this as fluid and as helpful in this transition as possible. Let's have a conversation first before we got demands of how we're going to adhere to whose process and so forth and so on. Now, the second transition that we had was a great transition. Good guys out of Gurney. We had a couple of chats back and forth. We're trying to figure out what was the best way to do this. We even extended some of the timelines working together for the client, because our goal was the best for the client, right? And so that was a good transition over with them. They took over the client successfully. They're super happy. and hopefully we got another partner and rapport for when we do some of these more transitions for what we're doing for our smaller clients into getting into where we're going to for our construction, manufacturing, and legal industries. We have the ability to have good partners that can take them over versus kind of throwing them in the wild and hope for the best for their IT support. And for the fact that the commitment we given for our clients, we want to make sure that they're in good hands. So go a little grace with when it comes to transitions, because you just never know who may be a good partner or who's someone you're going to be talking back about at another conference locally in your area. So that's what I'll say for this week's podcast there. But I'll tell you what, with us going into Orlando here as we're recording this for tomorrow, it is sure is busy as heck. I can't tell you how much stuff that I have for today, which is probably my own fault for leaving a lot of this into my own stuff. So, time management is key, especially for all those that either are juggling so many plates or choose to juggle all those plates because they have no other opportunities or choice to do so. You know, you get to being beyond busy, and that is the topic of today's show. Is not only for time management, but how do you get from beyond busy and finding flow in this hectic world? So, Mr. Rick Smith, you were the one to bring up this topic. Why don't you go ahead and kick us off here?
Well, of course, I bring up the topic because I probably struggle with it the most. But we before we started this conversation, we talked about we had a conversation prior to, we talked about just the time we spend in our business, right? Now, the one thing I've learned to value is my time. I did not do that before. And what someone, told me was, and they said it, I've heard this saying all the time, but finally it clicks, the one thing in this life you can't get back is time. You can lose all your money and make more money, right? You can break a bone and heal it and get back to walking or moving your arm or whatever the case may be. You lose time, you don't get it back, right? Time is finite for each one of us. We all have 24 hours in a day. How you use them is your choice, but you do not get back yesterday's 24 hours. So this is where, we have to learn how to use that time wisely. And, as Paco just mentioned, we're all getting ready to go to Orlando. We got all these things we're trying to get in place. So that when we're gone for those 4 days that we're gone, or in these guys' cases, a week, things don't fall through the cracks where we're not there. Now, some of that is time management and time usage. The other part of that is preparation, right? It's being prepared. How you use your time, and how you get other things to how you get, how, I guess the best way I'm trying to say this is, how do you make up for the time you don't have? Now, I'm going to speak now strictly from a business perspective, from as an MSP running your business, as an owner, CEO, whatever you may do, you have, a certain amount of hours that I guess you need to dedicate to the business. If you have a family, even if you don't have a family, I'd say mental health is important. So you cannot dedicate 24 hours to what you're doing, to your job, to your work, because you will just burn out very quickly, or you will have no life. As I'm sure a lot of us who started a business, a lot of entrepreneurs have run into that issue. So I'm not gonna preach a whole sermon here. I'll let Corey pick it up. But my whole thing is, use tools. We've had a lot of conversations about AI. We've had a lot of conversations about employees, but we need to learn to use those tools to the best of our ability to maximize the time that goes into your business, right? So again, as I said, I'm not going to talk about all your personal stuff because you do need to make time for that. But the time that you put into your business has to be efficient, has to be smart, and it has to really be, quote unquote, in the end, it has to be profitable for you. So learn to use your employees, the tools, AI, automations, things like that will help you and take some of these smaller things off your plate. Because what normally happens, I've found for me, I will have a checklist of things to do. I will get through most of them. And then what happens? Something small comes up, something simple, and it will take the majority of my time doing that. and then I have a hard time getting back on track to where I was. And a lot of that is just preparation. A lot of that is just being, just being efficient, having those efficiencies worked out. And as Paco uses the phrase, accounting for unplanned work, right? Because all that does is create unplanned work. So you have to have a way to account for that, and a way to basically a way to solve that. I have some tips later, but I'll shut up now and let Corey speak. And when he comes back around, I'll give the rest.
Nah, man, I love it. So this is one of the ones that is near and dear to my heart, man. And where it comes from, there's a couple things that I'll share. What I try to do in the day, man, you figure out there's parts of the day when you're productive, and that may be, hey, I'm a 10 to 11 or 11 to 1 or whatever it is. And what you got to do is you got to take that time. I call that's your power time. That's the time where you're going to be the most productive, and you need to protect that with everything in your power. Nobody gets that. That is yours, because you're going to do more in that time frame than you're going to do for the whole day, period. And so this is important as far as especially how you handle your calendar. That's blocked off, that owns up to you. And as an MSP, as a customer, we want to do what we want to do, what's right for our customers. And what we'll do is we'll send them an email and say, hey, when are you available to meet? And every single time they will ask for a time in that power hour, that power time. Well, the answer is that I can meet with you at 3 or 4. Is that okay with you? You didn't say no, you gave them time, but you did not allow them to come into the time that you hold, the busy time where you get most productive work, right? That's what's important from that perspective, is you got to find what's your power of the day and how you do that. And really own your calendar to allow them to only get in there, and guard that with all. That is your golden time where you're going to get the most done. Make sure you do that. The second piece is that what we do, what I do, and as you look at an MSP, as we run our business and what our techs do, every last one of them said, man, I'm busy. I'm too busy. I'm busy. I'm busy. I'm busy. And we're not arguing with that. We believe you're busy, but are you busy doing the right thing and the right work at all time? Right. And so what I did was I work with my team, and we have these conversations, and we follow a method called the Eisenhower method. And what that does is it runs through a thing that says, how do I flow chart in 4 quadrants of what I need to get done? And in that Eisenhower method, it says, these are the things that are important to do now. This is what you need to do later. This is what you need to delegate. And this is what you don't do. The challenge is everybody's busy because they're probably spending too much time in quadrant 3, doing the things that should have been delegated. Right? That they never get a chance to go back up to 2 or 1. Right. And so this is a hard thing, especially if as an owner or as everybody else, you want to make sure you own it. You don't want to let it fall through the crack. But think about it. Things that I do now, which is very, very important. I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. Here's the things that I can do later, which will eventually become in quadrant 1. But delegate it and don't do. When you go out there and say, you know what, do I really need to be the one sending out this marketing campaign or doing X? No, I'm gonna delegate that to the person who needs to be doing that. And then there's a whole boatload of stuff on your list that you say, you know what, I just don't need to do any of that. It's not gonna move the needle. I gotta let it go. Right. And you'll find out that's where it comes from. And if you spend your time working on the things that is delegate that you need to do and what you do later, it's going to be seriously on that whole point is going to move forward. And there's tools out there that will help you go through that process and actually work through that. But it is a personal thing that you can work on your personal side as well as in the business. It really allows you to say, let me focus on the things that matter, that hits a specific goal, and it's going to really truly move the needle forward. If I don't, I'm not going to do it, because if they don't answer those questions and I don't do them, it's not going to affect me either way or anything. I'm just burning cycles on something that probably doesn't need to be done, or anything that needs to be done at that perspective. So we try to follow that Eisenhower method, and it comes true, and it hasn't failed yet. Is that when you go down there and you sit down with your team or you sit down with yourself, that you'll find out that you're spending a whole lot of time on things that should have been delegated, or things that should have been just taken off the list that you did not need to do. And what you'll find out is going to blow your wig off, is that the things that you need to be doing and the things that you do later, the list is very small and minute, and you can pretty much knock them out in that power time that you have, and to be able to go and focus on other things that you need to go down that path. And what I also tell you that's really cool is that in that power hour, it's known that every time that you're interrupted, when you're focusing, it takes you about 15 to 20 minutes to get refocused, if you can, to get back on track. Right. So you think about that. If I'm working on an hour and somebody interrupts me twice, they blew half my hour away just for me to get
Mhm.
refocused. And if that's happening over and over and over during the day, you're too much focusing on interrupting and getting back, that you really only had about an hour or 30 minutes to really work on what you tried to work on, because you were trying to get back to it. So it's counterproductive. And so those are the key pieces, man, where this is just human. You're not foreign, you're not from Mars. This is just human nature. But if you figure out those methods and own it, because people are only going to respect your time if you respect your time. If you give it away,
Absolutely.
it's over. They're gonna take it, and they're gonna use all of it, and then you're just left up at night, like most of us. My power hour sometime is 10, 11, 12 at midnight, right? Nobody's around, and that's not how you want it to be. But
Mhm.
those are the things that I'll do, man. Is respect your time and own it, and guard it, because that's the time that you need to be able to do the things the right way and focus on those things, and then really look at your calendar, look at what you're really working on, and get rid of the stuff that you don't really think is gonna move the needle and not gonna help you hit your goal. You'll be shocked at how much baggage is hanging on to that and really going on that path.
You look like you had something to say, Rick.
No, I'm just laughing because I took the same tack, and I was thinking about what Corey said. I would work at night, when I say, yeah, this is when I'm most productive, between like 10 and 1 a.m. in the morning, right? But here's what happens. I go to bed at 1:30, then I oversleep, or I get up early enough, but I'm exhausted then, and I'm not productive going forward. So what I've done is go the other way. I get up now at 5:30 a.m. Between the hours of 6 and 8, no one's gonna work. My kids are not gonna call me. They're in college. My kids are in college. I know they're not up, so they're not gonna call me. you know, um, the phones don't ring from the office. No one's gonna really be up emailing me, or whatever, right? I can turn all of those things off and safely say I'm not gonna miss anything. And then I can focus my time and energy on whatever it is. And one of the things I've learned is, or I'm trying to practice now, is I spend a lot of time trying to fine tune things, right? I've told the story 100 times. I spent most of last year getting our documentation, getting our processes, our SOPs, everything in order, right? Every time something changes and you have to make some changes to that, do that in your off hours, right? Do that in your power hour time, and try to figure out how to dedicate business time for business things. And what I mean by that is, even though making the fine tuning to the SOPs or whatever the case may be is technically business related, it's not crucial at the moment, right? So you need your time to handle the things that really are your day-to-day operational um requirements. And like Corey said, there's a bunch of things, and I've learned this too. There's a bunch of things I take on that I'm like, why am I doing this? Right? Or the
Hmm.
opposite. You spend 15, 20, 50 hours doing it, either never use it or find out you never needed it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that goes back to evaluating what's really important, because we all get these and I'm not ashamed to admit this. So my therapist tells me it's just that it's what you use as your witching hour. Is you work on those things to avoid doing the things that you really should be doing, right? And that's what we probably got to focus on, is on what should you evaluate. I tell my kids all the time, when they ask me for something or they say they want something, I say, is this a need or a want? If you need it, then let's make it happen. If you want it, let's decide if we need to do it or not at the time. It's the same thing needs to be done in business. If you need to do it, then you got to get it done. But if you want to do it, or you want to evaluate something or change this or change that, that's probably just a more of a want than a need, and you can find yourself wasting time on that. Um, like Paco, I know you can attest to this. How many times I've wasted talking to you on the phone about a product that I don't need, that you always say, "Man, you got this that does that." right? And we have this conversation all the time. And then I find myself wasted because you look at something and then you say, oh, let me take a look at that. And then
It
you
gives you
realize
50
you don't
free
need.
endpoints. It
Say
gives
it
you
again.
this. It gives you 50 free endpoints. It gives you
Exactly.
this. It gets you that.
Exactly.
But I really
So
like how it looks. Okay.
here's my one piece of advice for everyone. And if you get caught up in the shiny object syndrome,
Squirrel.
go to your email. Just take a day or during your power hour, go to your email, unsubscribe to all of those vendors that you're not going to use that somehow got your email and are sending you stuff, so that you don't see that email, and you don't waste time reading, evaluating, looking at something that really is going to have zero impact on your business.
I mean, y'all just basically took everything I was going to talk about. I think we can wrap this episode right now. No, but I think, just carrying on a couple of the things that you both have mentioned, right, is, distractions are a mother trucker. And it's one of those where it's amazing on how you feel at the end of a day when you've been interrupted by so many times, and then you feel like the day just got shot. And you could have all the lists in the world, but somehow if you haven't dedicated that time for you to work on, it just doesn't feel like you did anything that day. So that's why they say translate lists into calendar appointments, because then that way you've kind of reserved that time for you. And then you just got to use the tools that you have in front of you. Like I enable do not disturb regularly on Mondays for all my teams so that they don't bother me on just questions that they have. And oftentimes they're pinging me for me to get to it when I can. But the way my brain is that, well, it's in front of mine. Let me just take care of it now, and then I'll move on to the next. And so they always say that whatever you're working on, you want to make sure you see it through before you move on to the next task. So if you have a task list of 10, make sure you get through number 1 before you get to number 2, because if you start working on a little bit of each, you're never going to get anywhere further and fast. Second thing is I like to use this tool that's built into Windows. It's called Focus, I believe, or Sessions, something like that. It's on the clock app, and there's a section in there. It's called Focus Sessions is what it's called. And so you could set your time, you could do whatever you can. And so what's cool about it is that you could set the time. It allows you to take a break if you want to, but the moment you enable it, it shuts everything down as far as notifications, everything outside of Windows. So you don't even have to bother with anything. So that way you don't have to, like, if you forgot to hit do not disturb on something, or you realize your VoIP system is on and all that type of stuff, you can flip that on for however long you want and kind of go from there. The last thing to carry on, like what Rick said, is that, really audit what you really need to do. Like really audit to see, like, is what you're working on, will it help, or is it beneficial to do it at a time where you don't have to talk to anybody? Is it customer facing? Is it people facing? Then you can handle it probably at an hour that you don't need to talk to anybody on your own time. But is it something that could be done during the day? Are you trying to set an appointment? Are you trying to get a meeting? Are you trying to do something like that? Well, that's something that's probably going to be want to do during the day. That time matrix is so important to where being able to determine what's urgent, what's not urgent, and then what's important and then not important. And then realizing on which of those pieces are, what's a crisis, then that's going to be a number 1. What's going to be, a last minute preparation, that's going to be a 1. Or if it's going to be, all right, well, I need to escape, or I need to do some little thing here and there, I got to make a phone call. Well, that could probably be in the quadrant 4, right? So being able to understand, what is it? But the big piece about it is that interruptions tends to be in the quadrant number 3. And so it ends up taking up over because it's urgent and not important, but it bumps what you had on number 2, which is important, but probably not urgent, that you didn't need to get to, right? So respecting those quadrants of that matrix allows you to just really see what you're trying to do. Because if you can't visualize what you're trying to do, and you're just trying to run through a list, and then you got all these things and distractions where your phone is on, you got all these other things, as Corey mentioned, you get hit twice in an hour, you pretty much have lost that hour trying to refocus and get back to yourself on what you were trying to focus on. And I'm sure a lot of us during the day trying to make things happen, we just end up getting distracted, and we just feel like, damn, where did the day go? So some of the
Yeah.
items to understand is like you got to just find your flow. There's so much noise that is out there. How do you get direct and how do you flow through that noise? So those are a couple tools that I use. Corey, I don't know if there's any tools you want to suggest that has helped you with.
Nah, I mean, you're hitting them up, man. I love the focus. We do the same thing on setting up scenarios. I'm an Apple guy, so we do the similar things that we can set up things about focus and sessions about what you want to do from that perspective, enable and turn off alerts and go down that path. It goes back to, we also use there's a thing called priority matrix that does the Eisenhower inside a team, so you can actually see that. One of the cool parts about this that you'll start to see is that once you start getting imparted as an owner, it never fails that it creates kind of an HR situation, because once you figure out all the stuff that you were doing that you should have been delegating, what you're going to find out is that employee that was so stellar was stellar because you did all the work.
Right.
So now you're like, hold up, I'm going to make this dude or her pay for what, do the thing that she's in, they've been, hired to do. And then in order for it to work for them, they need to start adopting that method as well, because what's happening is that they've used the Eisenhower method on you. They've delegated their stuff to you. And so we got to do it. That's why it's important to have it across the board, so everybody's on the same page of what that means. That I'm not blowing you off. I'm not putting it from that situation, but I'm gonna teach you how to fish versus fishing for you, right? So that you can continue on down the path. And so I would say, pick up those tools, right, and really go down that path, because what you're gonna figure out is it's about being productive and making sure that everybody is towing the low. We're small businesses. We all wear multiple hats. We all wear certain things, and we're going to get interrupted. But if I'm not out there growing the business and being cognizant of our time, because literally time is money for us, then it's hard to have that conversation of, hey, I need a raise, or hey, I want to do something else, or hey, I want to go plan something. Well, my grandfather said, hey, if I don't hunt, I don't eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I need to spend more time hunting than anything. And so if I'm caught up in the weeds and doing those things I can't do, it's pretty obvious that I can't hunt. And then when you can't hunt, people starve, right? And we don't want that. We got to go out there and do those things. And that's the pieces where we got to make sure we're on. So just be cognizant of that and know that you're not in it by yourself. We all struggle with that, but that's a good place of how you have that conversation.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
I think
Very
it
cool.
goes back to too. It's like learning, and everything I say, I speak from personal experience, right? From personal learnings. Sometimes the very, very hard way of learning, but it all goes back to prioritizing what's important, right? It has to start there, and you have to understand. And I think one of the things that we struggle with, or some of us may struggle with, is we don't know what is the priority, right? Because all of these things need to be done. If you own a business, like Corey said, you wear so many hats, and all of those hats need to have some kind of responsibility on a daily basis. But all of them are not urgent. All of them don't have to fall on you, and all of them do not have to consume you the way they do. And this is where you have to learn what the priorities are in your business and what the priorities are to you personally, right? Your business takes on, the business takes on the culture that you set. And if you're always pants on fire drill, whatever it's called, then that's the way your business is going to run. And you're always going to be doing things at the last minute. You're always going to be rushing. You're always going to be frantic, and you're always going to be unorganized, right? Undisciplined. Now, if you take it the other way and say, hey, because again, your employees or the people you work with or work for or who, whatever, they're going to take their cues from you. So if you can be organized and be, what does it say, to have, to be calm in a storm, right? To be calm, be the calm in the storm, then everyone else is going to follow you and be calm in the storm as well. So if you can learn, again, we're not going to panic when things get crazy or get nuts. We're just going to handle it the way it needs to be, because we know what's needs to be done and what's not necessarily important. So I just think that, again, probably learning to prioritize what needs to be done and stop putting the small. this is probably where I'll end it at. The small things always seem to take up most of your time, and then in the end, you realize it was the waste of your time.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would implore those as we round out here is that, you know, start documenting what you're doing and literally write everything you're doing in a calendar. You got something going on in the calendar, like for the day. All right, I'm going to have to take care of this, this, and this. Put it all in the calendar. Try and see if you could fill out that entire calendar from 9 to 5. And then if you're diligent enough and you do that for a couple of days, look back at it, see what it is that you have. Man, could I have moved this around to something else? Could I have given this to someone else? Is there a different way that I could have taken care of this? And then you apply that principle of, all right, is there 20% of this thing that I could have been doing to take care of the 80% of the noise that I have just dealt with throughout these couple of days, this week, however you notated it, right? Because with lists, it's hard to understand what you're doing time-wise, right? Unless you're tracking your time in a PSA for some reason, if it's actual work thing, but you're doing other non-billable items and you want to keep track of that, because if you can't determine what time is being invested, you won't know what the time that you should be getting paid for, right? And I think there's this argument of, well, you know, I don't have enough clients right now to worry about me getting paid my hours, so I'm going to go ahead and invest what I can or over here and not get paid. Well, you're doing a disservice to your own business, because that investment could be something that can help the business grow elsewhere, right? So being able to notate that, as simple as putting it in a calendar. I know that there's other tools that you can use AI to be able to translate lists into specific calendar invites and things of that nature to host for yourself. So those are going to be big things for you to really focus on, and just really determine, you know, how busy are you, you know, because you can be busy, but you probably are not productive, right? Running in place is not going to be the same as you running into somewhere else, right? So these are all going to be things that you want to take into effect. But again, it's finding this flow so you can get through on that hectic word. Yes, Rick?
No, I'm just agreeing.
You look like you were ready to drop some
Oh,
beats
no,
on
I,
me.
I was thinking about what Corey said in the beginning. I don't want to take credit for his work, but when we started this conversation, before we came on air, Corey made a point. We always make the MSP mantra they say is, you take care, we tell your clients, you take care of your business, we'll take care of everything else, right? And so for us who are smaller, for those of us who are smaller, and you have all these other things that need to be done, try to find a way if you can. I know money may be an issue, may not. There's ways around it, but don't be your own accountant. Don't be your own lawyer. Don't even find someone to do those things, because the time you spend researching it, putting the time in to do it, and then you realize 9 times out of 10 you miss some facts anyway, or you got it wrong, and you could have just paid a professional to do it, because of the fact that your hour, 2 hours, 3 hours is worth something, right? Whatever you charge per hour, that's what your hour is worth. So you've wasted that doing this when you could have just had a professional do it. So I say that again, it goes back to those hats, and just, let the professionals handle it. The same way you tell your client, you're not a tech, right? So don't try to fix the printer, or don't try to update whatever. It's the same thing you say to yourself. You're not a lawyer. You're not an accountant. You're not a doctor. You're not a whatever you may need in your business that requires another professional. I'm not advocating to say don't know what's going on, but you don't have to be the one to solve the problem all the time.
100%.
Yep.
That's golden right there, man. That needs to be on a t-shirt, bumper sticker, and we need to skywrite that one. That's what's up.
All right. As we kind of round out, is there any additional details or lasting words that we want to do before we sign off?
Yeah, I think, at the end of the day, man, the thing that we're saying here is find the right time and guard it, and make sure that you're doing the things that you need to do to protect it. And it's precious, like Rick said. This is that one thing that you'll never get back. So it is truly precious.
Can't say that any better than that closing statement there, my friend. And with that, if you like what you heard, tune in every week. You can watch us on the video podcast, youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button, and you'll be notified whenever a new episode is available. You can also take us with you on the go, because Rick has a face for radio on your favorite podcatcher app. We are on Amazon Music, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, to name a few. And also, for those of you who know, March 7th, join us, TechCon Unplugged Tour, first stop of the year. We appreciate it. We want to see you there. And again, when you get the time to chat with us three here, we're going to be making 2 stops this week. Come on now. If you can't catch us in Orlando, you got to catch us in New Jersey. And you better catch us in New Jersey because it's going to be a great time with that MSP roundtable. And we're going to have a good time. If you have been to a past TechCon Unplugged, we're going to try and capture that essence as we bring that over to in Elizabeth, New Jersey. So again, head over to techconunplugged.com. Thank you for listening. And we'll see you next time on MSP Unplugged.
Peace.